Okay, so in this video we're going to go ahead and look at how to apply our double angle formula. And it says that find sine of 2 theta if cosine of theta is equal to 3/5 and sine of theta is less than 0. So there's a couple things that we have to do. Is we're going to use triangle ratios, and basically I want to first identify what's the formula or identity that I'm going to use. And I know that sine of 2 theta is equal to 2 times whatever sine of the angle is times cosine of the angle. Okay, so the next step, I am going to identify my quadrant for my angle. And so in this example, this piece right here is going to tell me my quadrant. Okay? So I know, and well, in conjunction with this piece. So cosine's positive and sine is negative. So where is cosine positive and sine negative? And that would be in the fourth quadrant. Okay, so some of you might see that this is a 3, 4, 5. So if you don't see that, the third step would be to draw your triangle and label it. And we know cosine, so adjacent over hypotenuse, and this is our angle. Let me erase that. That doesn't go there. That goes on the hypotenuse. So that means this side would be a -4. Okay. So what we have here is now we have our triangle, and now I can apply the formula. And so that means that I have 2 times sine of the angle times cosine of the angle, and that'll give me my brand new trig ratio. So the idea of this problem is, okay, I got an angle here, and I know the cosine value, and what happens to sine if I double the angle? So what happens to the ratio if I double the angle? I don't know what the angle is. I don't need to know what the angle is, because if I have one of the trig ratios, I can draw a triangle, find all the information I need, and find what the new trig value is if the angle was doubled. And so now I just put in my sine value, which is -4/5, and I put in my cosine value, which is 3/5, and then I just multiply the fractions, and I get -24 over 25. Boom, and that's my trig value. Okay, so here's what I'd like for you to do on your calculators is I'd like for you to find what the actual angle is. Now this technically is, we're done with the problem, that's all we have to do, but I want to see if we can make a connection here. If we find cosine inverse of 3/5, what does that angle equal? So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make sure that I'm in degrees, and I'm going to take cosine inverse of 3/5, and that gives me an angle of approximately 53.1 degrees. So now what's sine of that angle if I double it? Okay, so that's basically what I'm doing. So it's basically saying what's sine of 106.3 degrees. I rounded to the nearest tenth. And so if you take sine of that value, I'm going to get a 0.96. But here's the thing. We know that we're in the fourth quadrant, right? So that means this would not be a positive value, this would be a negative value. And so I'd get -0.96. And this as a fraction is -0.96. So really I used right here, I just used the reference angle and then applied that to the, hi Mr. Allen. Hi. I applied that to sine, but then I knew, okay, well, really sine's negative, so then that means it's going to be a -0.96. And so really I use the second quadrant angle, whether I'm in the second quadrant or the fourth quadrant, my trig values are going to be the same. The only difference is going to be that one's positive and one's negative. And so I just use that to kind of double check, and that's about it. So I just kind of wanted to do a quick, hey, that's the same value. So we know that, that's exactly what we're finding. We're just finding sine of 106.3 degrees. We don't know the angle measurement, so we use the trig ratio.